when you're hiring them and when you're interviewing them, it's so important to be able to look at people and ask them specific questions to the experience that they have. So what we want to be able to do is when we're trying to hire the right people is just make sure that there is a match between what you want that person to do there, and asking for lots of examples. Asking for examples when they have, been able to do that particular task, but also asking questions a lot on behaviours. So firstly, we want to look at the task that you want done in your position description. The other thing we often don't put into position descriptions is attitudes and behaviours. So saying, so look, when you dealt with conflict, tell me an example of when you had that conflict with that particular person and how we could be able to resolve that particular conflict, and how did you go about doing that, and really write the answers down. How did they deal with it? What do they want? The other thing that happens is when we get candidates is that they are often coming in to get the job, and they're always coming from things that are really important to them. They're always coming from places where they are wanting to live their passions out and what's really important to them. However, what they're not doing is really fully understand what your business is about. So one of the questions that I've now started to ask is, look, there are a number of areas where you can identify what you're really passionate about, and tell me what your top 2 or 3 are. And I'm so okay if work is not in those top 3 areas out of the 7 or 8 areas. And I'm going to be sharing this model in detail. We're going to be talking a lot about this in the particular program. And we have a whole module dedicated to scripts and the way that you can actually learn to ask better questions to get the right people coming into what you're doing. But what I want to cover is that you do need to ask them what they're really passionate about, and also share with them what they're really passionate about. So, for example, I had one particular individual that came to that interview and she said, look, I obviously really want to get a job. I've got 3 kids under 5, and it's really important for me now to be able to find work that's got flexible work arrangements. What I really want to do is ideally work 4 days a week. I'm not sure what the requirements are. And because she was so clear about what she actually wanted, and it was so clear to me the fact that I was looking for somebody full-time, but that if I offered her a full-time role, she probably wouldn't take it because she had 3 kids under 5. So how could I actually incorporate flexibility? Could it be that she could do part of the role or full of that role at 4 days a week? And we were able to have a really open and honest conversation about it. But most candidates are not that open and honest at the beginning. So we need to get that out of them in the conversation and out of them in the interview. The other thing that's really important to be able to do is to understand what their expectations are around money. And I always think it's also so important to be able to talk to them about what their path of leadership may be. Some people are coming in and they're saying, look, I want to do this role for 12 months or 18 months, and then I want to basically move on and get more experience. Other people are looking for leadership. Other people are saying, show me, if I come in for this role, what is the next role from here and what is the role after that? So it's, again, really important to be able to work out what that individual is looking for, and allowing enough time to be able to have some really good questions and answers. Often in interviews, as the leader and as an owner, you're asking all of the questions. You need to, I always say, it's about a 3/4 to a quarter. And what you want to be able to do is at least have a quarter of the interview where the individual and the applicant has the opportunity to be able to ask you questions. I can also tell whether they've done enough research and they've actually done enough work on on the values of your business and what they're looking for. Intelligent, really good questions always tells me that this person's going to ask those really good questions and do some preparation before meetings and in that particular role. If the person comes in and says, oh, I have absolutely no questions, I think, well, what are you actually going to be like when you come into that? There's a couple of questions that are popping up in terms of the fact that often it's very difficult to tell whether people will actually ask you those questions. Sometimes they're a little bit shy. Absolutely. And I think when you're setting up an interview, you can also ask them saying, look, 3/4 of that interview will be where I'll be asking some questions and understanding your experiences and for you to be able to share that. But about a quarter of the interview will also be about where you get to ask the questions, and you can give them that heads up so that they can actually come in prepared with those questions and see the depth of their questions around the role, around your company, around you, so that you can actually start to incorporate what this person's going to be like. Sometimes what happens, though, is that people end up coming into our businesses, and within 6 or 12 weeks, we can see that there's not a match. And I know that there is this saying in business that says hire fast, fire faster. I don't believe in that. I believe that you actually need to hire really, really slow. You want to be able to hire slowly. And even though you are short of time, even though you really needed this person to start yesterday in these roles, it's so important to be able to start slow and to be able to make sure that you get that right person. I always think that in a business, say you've got a team of 6 or 10 people, or you might have a team of 200 people, maybe even get a second interview, maybe even have them meet a couple of your other management team, perhaps even a couple of other employees in your business, team members in your business, and get their perspective on what they thought of that person, how interactive they were. And, just that little bit of extra work at the front, perhaps another hour, hour and a half of time, either of yourself or people in your team, would have really huge dividends in terms of being able to understand that this person might not fit the team, and getting some of the team's input into how you think that they went and what could be done. If you've got any questions, please pop them in and I'll try and answer them as much as I can on these lives as well, because we're going live in 3 different platforms here. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is it's so important to also have some scripts ready in terms of not only the questions you're going to ask them in an interview, but when things don't start to go well. Because when we hire, sometimes we're like, okay, thank goodness, this person's now hired and now I've got so many other things to get done. And we forget to have this check-in with that person. In those first 3 months of hiring a new person, it's so important to be able to do a weekly, in the first couple of weeks, maybe every couple of days, and always doesn't have to be you. It could be people in your team. Look, how's it going? What do you need? Are there any issues? It could be simple issues with IT. It could be simple issues with the fact that nobody's told them where certain things are. But you also want to be able to have a weekly catch up with people all the time. So you want to be able to have a weekly catch up to see how they're going with their tasks, what the gaps are, and be able to make sure that this person onboards and sets up things really well. Those first 3 months are really crucial. And I always find that it's really great to be able to put in a buddy, perhaps in your team, and that person could be that buddy person which shows them how to get lunch and where to go to IT, or whether there's certain small issues in terms of being able to do that, and have a buddy for them for those first few weeks, where that buddy is catching up with them, at least touching base with them once a day, once every couple of days as well. So it's so important when we are hiring people to make sure that the questions that you've prepared are really, really great. If you need a hand with those questions, please shout out. I'm also in the Grow program, which is going to be starting, that the doors are open today and they're open for the next 8 days. And in that 7-week program, I'm going to be diving deeply into how to hire right people, how to have some scripts that will actually help you, and what are some of the actions that you can take to prevent yourself from having a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety when you don't hire the right people. We've all been there. And then that is really, really stressful in terms of how we manage now, getting them asked to leave. One thing I do agree with when people say hire fast and fire faster, the fire faster is definitely a really important thing. That probation period that hopefully you've got in your contracts that you offer, most places will offer a minimum of 6 months, 3 months. I sometimes have offered up to 6 months if they're really critical jobs, just so we've got an opportunity to be able to see this person. And yes, a lot of time gets invested, but if that's the wrong person, we certainly within that probation period, whatever that probation period is for you, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, and it might be less or it might be a little bit more depending on the role and the size of your business that you have. One of the things you want to be able to do is make sure that you really get to know that person, really hold them accountable for what you're trying to get them to do, and really make sure that that onboarding and that support is there for you in those first moments. If you've got any questions, please DM me. Please send me that, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They're the 3 platforms that I'm on a lot. The live is going to all of those 3 platforms now as we speak. And so please just shout out, please DM me. If you want to know anything about the program, I will post that in here. It's got lots of information in terms of what will be covered in each module. And we're going to dive deep into how you can really end up scaling your business. But particularly, it's so important to be able to scale your business with the right people in terms of what you do. I've also got a free webinar that's going to be happening this Thursday, which is 11 a.m. Brisbane time, 12 p.m. New South Wales and Victoria time. And depending on which part of Australia you're in and which part of the world that you're in. And so if you are interested in that, it'll be great if you want to register that. And I'll put the link in there, but it's basically askshivani.com/register. So you can register for free. If for some reason you can't make that particular webinar, we will send you a copy of that. And in it, I'm going to be talking about the 3 strategies to really get people to step up, whether they are existing team members that have been there for many, many years, or they're a new team member just starting out with you. So we're going to be covering a whole heap of that. I'm going to be going live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Brisbane time, 12 p.m. Sydney time. And so I will be covering a bunch of things. So there's a bunch of actions here for you to take. I'll pop them on the thing. If you've got any questions, please DM me and let me know how I can help. Great. Thank you for joining me today.